Monica Cost Show. New levels, no labels. The Monica Cost Show.
Hello and welcome to the Monica Cost Show, New Levels, No Labels, and I'm your host, Monica Cost. I'm very excited to have you back as we climb to new levels of human connectedness through the dismantling of social labels that keep us unfulfilled by life itself, stuck in unhealthy relationships, jobs that lack purpose, and financial turmoil, sometimes spiritual facades, and all other disabling rituals. Through conversations with familiar faces, we'll explore the effects of labels, the consequences of conforming, and the liberation of living true. By the end of each segment, it is my prayer that you will begin or continue on your authentic journey to a place of unfiltered personal truth. We won't be glorifying the rich and famous or dishing the dirt on those who are experiencing challenging times. What you will get is thought-provoking conversations with a purpose. And that is to have notable personalities share their journey in a way that gives others the courage to abandon the labels they've been chasing, start living according to their own values, and to join this authentic living movement. We are, in fact, Authentic TV. Today, I am delighted to have real estate broker, philanthropist, actress, and model, Miss Melyssa Ford, here for an authentic conversation on the Monica Cost Show, New Levels, No Labels. Miss Melyssa Ford.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. It is so cool to see you sitting here.
I know.
Who knew? So as you know, I have bent your ear many a time in the short period of time, but the intense period of time that we've known each other about this whole thing I'm on authenticity. And one of the things that's harder to explain to people is this value system thing. And so I tell people, because I want to talk a little bit about the things that, you know, Melyssa Ford values, but values usually are on the other side of something that makes you angry, right? So let's say consideration is one of my values, and how I found out is because I said, why do I get so upset when people cut me off in traffic, or don't say thank you when I hold the door, or don't ask me before they do something that, you know, affects me? So if you had to think of things that sort of set you off, because it's a, you know, it's a value confrontation when that happens, what kinds of things set you off?
Well, I would definitely agree with you that a lack of consideration literally just, it can be like an apocalypse to me. Like, that's how I react to it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a Scorpio, so we're very extreme people. So the world could be, you know, coming to an end, and I'm very Hakuna Matata, but let it be something very small and I lose it.
Yeah.
And something as seemingly innocuous as bad manners, a lack of consideration, a lack of respect for, say, my time.
Sure.
Thinking that your time is more valuable than mine, therefore treating me like I'm more of an option rather than a priority will make me want to throttle you. Yeah,
That's right.
That's definitely a value to me.
Got it.
Absolutely.
Now, you know, I told you, you blew me away after we met, and talking to you, you know, forget the people who know you from how you started your career in video modeling, but just looking at you, you talk about perceptions and like blowing them out of the water. Tell us about, you know, and this show is about authentic living and getting rid of the labels. So,
Right.
I want people to dig a little deeper.
Right.
So can you tell us some of, which I think are completely hilarious now that I know you, but what are some of the labels that people have given you, or the misconceptions about Melyssa?
Well, the first one that comes to mind, obviously, having participated in and modeled in music videos, is the label of promiscuity. That one is like, has been pretty much the bane of my existence in the entertainment industry.
Sure.
And, you know, a lot of times a perception is created outside of anything you've even done. Has nothing to do, you're simply guilty by association. And even though when I participated in doing music videos, I did nothing that I was ashamed of. I was actually called the queen of no. No, I'm not wearing that. No, I'm not doing that. You want me to kiss him? I just met him. I don't care that he's the artist. No, I was the queen of no. And the funny thing is that if you create if you create a demand for you, then people are just if you siphon off the supply of you, then you're going to create a demand. And that's unintentionally what I did by saying no all the time. Mm-hmm. Because at the same time of doing music videos, I was also a university student, and I held down 2 jobs back home in Toronto. So if my school schedule or work schedule did not permit that I could, fly off to the South Pacific to do a Mobb Deep and Nas video, well then my priorities were very, 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 very firmly set in place.
Sure.
I knew what my bread and butter was and what, frivolous fun was.
Yeah.
I knew the difference. And I don't think that a lot of girls processed it that way,
mm-hmm.
And so they would kind of throw caution to the wind, where I was a little bit more pragmatic in my thinking. So, the promiscuity label definitely gets, thrown around a lot. There's definitely the assumption, I guess, that I was of mediocre intelligence, I guess because of being attractive and selling that image.
Sure.
And no. No.
Yeah,
I used to read the dictionary thesaurus for fun when I was 5.
And it shows, because from the time we met again, I don't know a little bit of words,
mm-hmm.
but I found myself like, let me just Google what that word was so I can stay with the conversation.
I mean, please, come on now. We talked from 8:30 until 2 o'clock in the morning, and got mad at people who kept stopping. What? We're doing our thing. Leave us alone.
Yeah.
But I just think that I just find it so funny. I'm Canadian, so I just find it so funny how you are labeled as one thing and that's all you are.
Yeah.
And I literally feel like an elephant being shoved into an envelope half the time.
That's a great analogy.
Just because of the confines of these labels. But I think that it's more, some people allow themselves to become imprisoned by those labels.
Sure.
And it's really honestly your choice as to whether or not you allow that to happen, And I think that once you get a firm grasp on who you truly are and have a very stabilized sense of identity, mm-hmm. then labels really kind of they roll right off your back. Okay, it's fine that's what you think I am. Mm-hmm. I know who I am and whatever.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head, is like that centeredness of knowing who you are, which many of us don't, because there's not a real, some people just have strong resolve, and
right.
You're one of those people. But I think that it can be taught by really understanding who we are, because then your decisions are always based upon those things that you value and never based upon the situation at hand. I remember this pastor said to me, you can't change your values to fit your circumstances.
That's very true.
Right? So on set, you saying no was saying, I know that the situation may say it's calling for this, but I don't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, and it happened because I was put into those positions. And when, most people don't understand, when you're asked to be a video model, and this was before the stigma,
Sure.
had kind of stuck. Mm-hmm. This is Hype Williams or Chris Robinson or one of these famed video directors, and you're on set with Jay-Z, you're on set with all these very influential power players, and you're this 18 or 20-year-old girl, your mom's not with you, right. Your concept of who you are has not fully, gelled,
Sure.
And you're being asked to do these things with an incentive attached of it's going to make you a star. Mm-hmm. I ask you, what girl at the age of 18 to 20 who's already there is not going to be thinking, okay, well, what do I have to do?
That's right.
You just have to do this. And then you're looking at, well, it's not porn, so you make certain concessions that kind of create this, downward little spot. And I never allowed that to happen. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. It's a 3-minute video.
Sure.
This is not going to change my life. It just isn't.
Right.
But then again, my trajectory is a little bit unique.
Absolutely, which is amazing. And going back to talk about misperceptions of being labeled, not having a brain or whatever, talk about your major in college. which was?
Forensic psychology. I thought that I was the weirdest kid on the planet because I was just enamored with, horror novels like John Saul and Stephen King and Dean Koontz. I loved these books, like the gorier, the better. And I was reading like 3 at a time when I was like 8 years old. I was voracious. I could not get enough. And then I was in a bookstore with my mother one day and I found the true crime section and that was it. It was like, I literally feel like that was the moment in which I really figured out what direction my life would have to take. That's what I wanted to do. I would do that if it was like, if I was broke. Like it wasn't the money.
Sure.
It was just the passion.
Yeah.
It was there from when I was a kid. And then when I saw the movie Silence of the Lambs and realized that you could actually make a career out of studying, developing character composites on criminals and serial killers, I was like, I'm gonna do with my life.
Yeah, well, you're still young.
To say that I took a major detour is the understatement of the century, but I still am fascinated with it. And you're right, I don't believe that that it's still not in the cards for me to somehow, some way insert that, that kind of profession into my life later on. Yeah. I don't know how, but somehow, some way it's gonna work out.
When we met, you were reading a crime book or a forensic.
I was reading Mindhunter by John Douglas, who's responsible for basically, creating the behavioral science unit. He is who Jack Crawford was modeled after. The director of the FBI or whatever his role was in Silence of the Lambs. Yeah, and I was absorbed. Like, I want to read the book again and again and again. And it's very macabre stuff. It's not light. It's reading. It's
correct.
It's disturbing. But I don't know. I think it's just kind of shaped who I am as well. I'm a very, my assessment of risk is very healthy. And I share that with girlfriends, who are less likely to follow the same safety protocols that I do, and I feel like it's kind of like my duty to, help them out, kind of save them, from being like, and I'm like, no, you're too beautiful and young, and this is what can happen to you, so I need you to start doing this. Yeah.
And I mean, you talk about your trajectory changing and not being on path. I find beauty in that, in having paths that give you different experiences to sort of lily pad, and just the things that you pick up by not taking the straight and narrow. And we're all different, right? Not everybody wants to go straight. They need a little bit more variety.
My dad always used to say, if there was an easy way and a hard way to do things, you can guarantee Melyssa's always gonna take the hard way. She can't learn unless she's getting kicked in the teeth. That's the only way she knows how to learn, is by getting beat up by life. Like, oh, okay, so, put the hand on the burner. Oh, that's not what I'm supposed to do. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I know.
So from the jobs that you've had, or the career paths that you've taken, which one thus far do you think is most in line with who Melyssa is? And I don't mean the label of the job, but sort of the things that you do within the career.
That's a good question, because I find myself doing a lot of different things. I've gone from video modeling to to magazine and calendar modeling, leveraged that, became a television host, actress. But I do have to say one thing that, really sticks out is my charitable contributions to my community, and my kind of philanthropic nature. I was working for BET, and I started to realize the power of my visibility very early. I was outside going into the studio, and there was a bunch of kids outside. And when I got out of the car, they were, Melyssa, Melyssa, Melyssa. And, okay, take some pictures or whatever. And one girl, she was just like, where's Tequila? And Tequila was my dog. And I'd never met this girl before in my life. And I said, how do you know about my dog?
Right.
And she's like, I read about you.
Wow.
And then I was just like, wow, people really absorb everything, you know? You're just shocked at the things that people absorb about you, what they remember about you. And these are things that just cavalierly fall out of your mouth. And so I realized I've got to be very careful about what I say and the image I continue to project. It's got to be authentic.
Sure.
It's got to be completely authentic, but it's got to be responsible at the same time, because I can't have, you know, parents or young kids thinking that certain things are okay, like, for example, an inability to solve conflict like a mature adult.
Sure.
And so you won't see me on a reality show throwing bottles at people's heads. It's not happening.
Right.
No matter what I feel towards that person, there's a greater sense of responsibility. And so I started to realize that one of the things that I needed to do was to dispel the myth of what it was like to be a video model and to be a very popular one, and what that meant. No, it did not mean that I had to sleep with the artists or the director or the producer. It didn't mean I had to do any of those things. It didn't mean I had to compromise myself, because there were a few girls that had their stories out there where they did compromise themselves. I'm like, that's them, I'm over here.
Sure.
You know, you can make certain choices that, you know, might seem kind of unpopular, but it doesn't mean that it defines who you are. I want to take the glitz and the glamour off of the profession, so that they understood what really happened, you know, inside of those 3 minutes, really created over the course of sometimes 3 days.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I think you're a very dynamic individual. And tell us a little bit more about the philanthropic stuff and the community service. The stuff, again, you know, the cameras don't show up for that stuff.
They don't.
But I think
don't.
It's, you know, I think people should
They love
know
to find
about
out
it.
who you're dating or who
Absolutely,
they think you're dating. All day long.
I'm not
like,
asking
that's
that
who I'm
question.
dating? I haven't even met him. You know how many times that's happened? Oh, God. But in terms of philanthropy, when I was on BET, I was doing a show with Big Tigger. And he had a nonprofit organization, and its purpose was to raise awareness for the prevention of AIDS and HIV, specifically in the DMV area, DC, Maryland, Virginia, because that's where he's from. But what I really liked was the double-pronged approach at understanding who it is that contracts the disease. And that is people, you know, African Americans, and a lot of people are not able to read the literature that would provide them with the education. And so it was a double-pronged approach at attacking the problem.
Sure.
And I thought that was phenomenal. And so I started to go to Tig's charity weekend religiously every single year. I was like, if there's anything you want me to do extra, volunteer-wise or whatever, he was like, just you being there and speaking is good enough. And so I started to speak on not behalf of his foundation, but just the cause itself. And that's what it had to have been 2004, 2005, something like that. And around 2008 or 2009, I was at a conference. I'd been invited to a conference in Atlanta. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention was holding this conference. And I was like, wow, I got invited. Okay, this is awesome. Like, I didn't even know they knew I existed type thing. And they tracked me down in the conference and they said, well, we wanted to find out why you do what you do. And I said, well, what do you mean? They were like, well, does anybody in your family have HIV or AIDS, friends, close associates, whatever? I said, not a single person.
Yeah.
And they said, well, why do you do this? I was like, well, I feel like that shouldn't be the incentive to want to, you know, work towards the betterment of your community. If I can use my voice to educate or help one person, you know, avoid having to deal with such a, you know, take on such an enormous lot in life, then that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
And they said, well, that's the answer we were hoping for.
Yeah.
And so they offered me a partnership. And so since then, I've been working closely with the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and they basically just send me out into the field, which means I can get sent to universities, colleges, high schools, and, you know, participate in their conventions and anything that they do, and then just help them spread the word.
That's phenomenal. I mean, particularly usually people get on to something when they have
Been affected by it.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And so to sort of get out in front of it is, I think, is phenomenal. So
Yeah, I've been lucky. You know, I mean, my father passed away when I was almost 16 years old, and he had a myriad of different diseases. You know, so I was fortunate enough to have a really wonderful father. He was an extraordinarily responsible, you know, parent. He was my friend when he needed to be, but don't get it twisted, I had a healthy dose of fear for that man.
which probably also helped you in saying no. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of people do have daddy issues. It's not an excuse, but it's a reality that they're searching for something that they don't yet understand because they haven't done the work.
It's very true. And I didn't grow up with my parents telling me what I looked like ever. They always kind of stress the importance of education and stress the importance of cultivating your inner characteristics rather than what I look like never came up.
Sure.
Ever. And so everybody in my family is healthy. Nobody's, you know, had like these, you know, had to live through these horrible circumstances of disease or whatever the case is. So I just had to pick something that I felt needed a voice.
Yeah.
And I seem to like to find causes that are inconvenient and stigmatized and need a very candid voice and need a strong personality.
Sure.
Because I won't be forced into a corner. I won't be told what to say. I'm going to say what the truth is, and the truth is inconvenient.
Sure.
and it's not pretty, but it needs to be said.
Got it.
Yeah.
So switching tracks, you have a project coming up that talks about the bonds of sisterhood.
It definitely examines the bonds of sisterhood.
Thank you. Can
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's a project that will definitely, you know, you're not going to be able to miss it once it reveals itself. And it was fascinating to be involved because it was, you know, a group of African American women from different walks of life, and we are all very similar in one way. We have all postponed having children and getting married. And because our careers were basically our babies. And we represent a huge population of women who are pretty much voiceless. And so we examine, you know, competitiveness that's disguised by other things.
Yeah.
We, you know, a lot of kind of issues that come up have to do with, I don't know, just like tripping the prom queen syndrome, you know, mean girl stuff, you know, and also it's kind of like investigates a lot like groupthink,
Yeah.
you know, and how people, you know, the stronger personalities can actually control the weaker ones by the most subtle ways and things that they say. So it's pretty.
Well, looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So there's a game that we play
Okay.
on the Monica Cost Show called The Label on the Table.
Okay.
And if you would be gracious enough to play the game, there are no wrong answers. That
Okay.
is the beauty of this game, is there's no embarrassing moments where you
Okay.
say, oh my God, I can't believe she didn't get that. And so here are the rules of the game, is that I'm gonna read you a scenario. And in the scenario, there will be a few labels.
Okay.
I would like you to tell me your definition of that label, given the scenario, and then I'll tell you mine and we'll see if we match.
Okay.
Okay. And the goal of the game is to show how different people can process things, which is why we should dig a little deeper
Exactly.
versus slapping a label.
Exactly.
All right. So you and I have had these dating conversations. So here's the scenario. I'm telling you, I call you and I say, oh my gosh, Melyssa, I know this great guy that I want to introduce you to. He is successful, sweet, and educated. All right. First of all, I said great. Did you have any thought around what I may have meant when I said great?
I thought charismatic.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I meant he's a gentleman.
Okay.
Okay. Again, just different filters,
Yeah.
right? Or not even different filters, but you could have meant gentleman too if you had met him, but you hadn't met him, and I'm just giving you these very vague labels.
Charismatic, personable.
Okay.
Yeah, another word to describe. Great. Personable.
Awesome.
Okay, everybody likes him.
Thank you. How about successful?
Successful. Either top level executive at a company or runs his own company.
Okay. Actually, we were on with that. And here it meant that he has the money to do what he wants to do, and that he is living according to his values. But again, that's my value related. That's kind of not fair. Yeah.
6 figures, yeah.
How about sweet?
Sweet. We'll go and buy me tampons at the drugstore. That's sweet.
We did not match on that one.
Wait, what was yours?
Kind-hearted.
Well, I mean, that's
But
really
but so is
nice.
that. But
Yeah.
that's sweet too.
Oh, that means he's. I mean, if a guy's gonna go to the store, like, babe, can you go? I can't. And if he goes, he's awesome.
I tell you
like,
what.
come on, yeah.
Hence, we have to say a little bit more than he's sweet.
Yeah.
Right. And then lastly, educated.
Educated. I picture him going to an HBCU and graduating with a master's degree.
And I think of somebody who sort of can view the world from all angles. So, you know, they're educated because of how they process information, right?
I thought, when I hear educated, I tend to think more formally.
Yes.
Yes.
I think, well, and then I think that's the unfortunate part about that particular label is that people who are really well read and educated through life or different books that they've read
Can sometimes be socially awkward.
Well, that is true too. Yeah. All right. Which, since this is the Monica Cost show and we're talking about labels, socially awkward, meaning they don't easily talk to people.
Or when they do, you're like,
did that really come out of your mouth?
That sounded like a good idea in your head, right? Hey.
Next time, keep it to yourself.
Exactly. I might have a book for you to read.
Absolutely. Well, I can't even thank you enough for coming on the show.
You're
it was
welcome.
Nice to see you in this aspect, and thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
I want to thank real estate broker, philanthropist, actress, and model Melyssa Ford for joining us in today's conversation on reaching new levels with no labels on the Monica Cost Show. I hope today's show has given you a greater insight into the woman beyond the perception and that you are inspired to take a deeper look past the labels that we so easily apply without complete understanding. Not just for how you view others, but also the way in which you label yourself and view yourself. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us on Facebook at The Monica Cost Show, on Twitter at Monica Cost Show, or feel free to send us an email at feedback@monicacost.com. I'm your host, Monica Cost. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Until then, take the label off the table and dig in.
Oh.